Oh, I see Nora.
We should be good.
Awesome. Let's get started. Welcome everybody to our CVTA TAC meeting. This meeting is on a different day based on some of you all having a holiday on Monday. So thank you all for joining us at this different time. Janice, can you please do roll call and certification of a quorum, please? I can't hear you, Janice. No.
No volume.
All those who are having little technical difficulties, you should be able to get started momentarily again.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Let's go with Town of Ashland, Miss Amos.
Here.
Charles City County, Mr. Mitchell. Miss Russell.
Here, Gary Mitchell's here.
Thank you. Chesterfield County, Vice Chair Smith.
Here.
Miss Walker. Goochland County, Mr. Goyne. Mr. Coleman. Hanover County, Mr. Vidunez. Mr. Flagg. Henrico County, Mr. Ure.
Here.
Miss Smidler. New Kent County, Mr. Stauder. Miss Leduc. Powhatan County, Mr. Shardine. City of Richmond, Chair Clark.
Here.
Mr. Bridewell. DRPT, Ms. Dubinsky. Mr. Wagner. GRTC, Ms. Torres.
Here.
Ms. Sink. VDOT, Mr. Riblett.
Here.
Mr. Mann.
Here.
Ms. McAdory.
Here.
RMTA, Ms. Dean. And Virginia Port Authority, Ms. Nelson. Thank you, Madam Chair. That concludes the roll call for attendance. We do have a quorum, and I am going to step out for just a couple minutes and see if I can fix my my audio issues. I'm going to make you co-host and leave and come back.
Okay, great. We'll move to item 6. Oh, well, I'm sorry. I just skipped all the way to 6. We'll go for, are there any considerations to for amendments to the agenda? Hearing none. Item 4, approval of the September 12th, 2022 CVTA TAC meeting minutes. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved. Barb Smith.
Thank you.
Second, Tadger.
Awesome. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Perfect. I guess chat with some of the delay in some people had the agenda, some people didn't. Do you want to read the public comment to be safe?
Yes.
Awesome.
This meeting is being held via Zoom. A link to the Zoom webinar where individuals may register to participate is posted at the top of the agenda in the box. Members of the public are invited to submit public comments either verbally or in writing. Written comments can be submitted through the Q&A or chat function on Zoom, which is at the bottom of the screen, or to the email address at the top of this agenda. Written comments will be read aloud or summarized during the meeting when possible and will be included in the meeting minutes. Verbal comments can be taken at this time during item 5, the public comment period. Please indicate through the Q&A or chat functions on Zoom if you would like to comment. When acknowledged by the chair, please clearly state your name so that it may be recorded in the meeting minutes.
Do we have anyone that signed up for public comment?
We don't have anyone signed up. There are a couple people listed as attendees. I would encourage anyone from the public who is attending the meeting right now to use the Q&A function at the bottom if there are any questions you wanted to ask. Madam Chair, I don't see anything in there right now. So we didn't have any requests ahead of time either.
Oh, okay.
Can
Awesome.
you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm not sure what the issue was, but I left and rejoined, and so we should be okay now. Sorry about that.
Now, if we have no public comments, we'll move to item 6. I don't have a formal chair report. I will address some of the items. I think all of them are namely related to some additional items already on the agenda. So I will talk about what the finance committee gave us some direction today and some tasks. So I'll talk about those when we get to item 8 and 9. So item 7, the fall line wayfinding plan. Chet, if you will take that item.
Yes, thank you very much. This is a new item. It kind of follows along with some of the discussion and action that the Fall Line Working Group has been talking about, as well as the Friends of the Fall Line Group. Everything is moving along very well with the design build project, the work that VDOT is taking the lead on and coming up with the trail design. But I think we have all discussed at one point or another the need for some kind of specifications and understanding of common wayfinding along the route and what that design might look like in terms of the aesthetics, a common theme, those kinds of things. I have been talking with kind of both Fall Line Working Group and Friends of Fall Line folks about this, and we would like to, I think it would be a great use of CVTA funding for CVTA to sponsor the development of a wayfinding guide plan, whatever it might be called, to help provide that kind of unifying look and common theme across the entire trail system. At this point, it's been a few months, but in working with our friends at Sports Backers, they had originally solicited kind of a concept proposal just to get an idea of a ballpark number to think about for what something like this might cost. And it was around $75,000. I think at this point, my interest is trying to get that moving forward with a set aside of funds to cover a guide like this and to move that through the CVTA process for consideration and approval. I think in terms of the funding mechanism, there were significant carryover funds from last fiscal year in the operating budget. There is going to be a need for some of those funds. This morning, the CVTA Finance Committee made a recommendation to move forward with the hiring of a search firm for the executive director position. So I think that'll impact some of the funding, but I still think there will be a fair amount of balance left over in that carryover that the operating budget could fund development of a plan like this, and it wouldn't have to impact any local funds or even the regional pot. But I think that's as long as my goal right now is to have a discussion with the TAC to make sure that this does make sense to move forward with something like this. The timing is right as different segments are starting to come online, and then work with Finance Committee if TAC is willing to make a recommendation to then, figure out where the funds can come from and how that process will move forward. Madam Chair, I'm happy to entertain any comments, answer any questions I might be able to provide. I know this is somewhat new for TAC. We haven't discussed it in the past, but I think it is kind of on the tip of everybody's tongue.
Okay, thanks, Chet. Barbara, I'm just going to ask this one question regarding, I guess, clarification on this wayfinding plan. I guess that's different from the furnishing and install that VDOT that I know Henrico was looking for VDOT to assist with.
Yes, I think the goal here, and honestly, the content obviously is not decided yet because we haven't talked about it. But I think that one of the big components of this plan would be, what's the directional signage going to look like? What are the graphics going to be? What's the color scheme? What are the different types of furniture that will be able to be used, and how should those look? So I think there's obviously some overlap with the work that VDOT is doing right now, but yeah, I think the contents itself are kind of flexible right now, and that's really what I was hoping to get some feedback on.
Okay, thank you. Barb?
I feel this might be redundant to what you just asked, but yeah, I was going to ask Liz with the design guidelines. I thought there was something in there along those lines. Trail amenities.
Yeah, this is Liz. What we've done is in the design guidelines, which we're trying to finalize, there is sort of a mapping portion that identifies where some of the lookout and the bigger trail amenities could be placed. And then there's also discussion, but no actual plans, but a discussion of what the wayfinding might look like or might do, like the purpose of it and how it might do it. But there's nothing as far as logos or branding, none of that is included. And I think, Chet, that's part of what you're thinking would be included. Yeah. So it's mostly just guidance. And then as far as the design build project, we're going to be building the trail itself, and we'll put basic directional, if the trail turns or every so many miles, which this is stated in the design guidelines, every so many miles you put a milepost sign so everyone knows you're still on the trail. But those won't have a logo or anything like that. It'll just be standard.
Do we have any additional questions for Chet? I know that this is an action item. I think at least potentially for the board, some explanation of what this wayfinding plan would consist of would probably be helpful. And then I don't know how amenable to additional operating funds to fall on they will be, but that's up to them. So I see Barb hand and then Todd.
Yeah, I was just wanting to know kind of specifically what the scope of work would be and an estimate. So I wouldn't want to take action until we got a chance to look at a scope and at least an estimate of the fee.
Okay. You put your hand down, Todd?
Just in anticipation of going next. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, and to add to Barb's request, and I think this is great that Chet, that y'all want to take the lead on this, because we do need to get this effort going. I think we just need coordination with VDOT and the other localities on what's going to be included in this versus the furnish and install, and we're still collectively trying to work through that. So I think as long as we get that clarity, I think this is a great idea.
So Chet, I guess with some of those comments, do you want to hold off on making an action, or?
I may have changed the requested action. Based on the work that sports backers did in doing some preliminary research on this type of thing. Like I said, they had a general estimate of around $75,000. Would TAC be interested in making a recommendation that a certain amount of funding be marked in the operating budget as for this line item, so that a scope and fee could be developed and worked into that? I guess I'm fine with whatever TAC decides to do in terms of process, but I did want to make. I think it's important to make the authority aware that this is something that TAC and finance are going to be considering, and it's an important step to make sure that we keep everything else moving.
Thank you. All right.
I'm okay with maybe having an up to whatever that amount is, 75,000, to take to the full authority, with the understanding that the scope and costs still have to be worked out, and maybe we can do that through fall-line working group. I don't have it in front of me when the next meeting is, but maybe those details can be worked out then, and then at least in the meantime we have an approval to move forward with it, just to work out the specifics. Suggestion.
All right, with that, then I will entertain a motion for recommending to the CVTA up to $75,000 in funding for the development of a wayfinding plan for the Fall Line Trail.
So moved.
Second.
Awesome. We have a motion and a second. Should we do a roll call?
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir. Chair.
just a discussion. I don't know if a friendly amendment might be necessary to designate that would be set aside from the administrative and operating budget.
Oh, yes, yes. So, Mr. Ure, would you mind amending that stated motion to include from the CVTA's operating excess carryover funds or CVTA operating budget?
Yeah, that's fine. It's operating budget to confirm, Chet.
Yes, administrative and operating budget. Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
I'm good with that.
okay, awesome. Ms. Firestone, can you do a roll call, please?
Ma'am, can you still hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Miss Amos,
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell?
Aye.
M- Vice Chair Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Budunez,
Aye.
Mr. Yor,
Aye.
and Chair Clark.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Awesome. Yeah, so looking forward to making sure that we have, and then I think this way we may have all the components we may need, design guidelines, the furnishing install, and then wayfinding. Hopefully that'll be the all we need. Everything can be included in those for the Fall Line Trail implementation phases. So we're gonna move to item 8. And we had some change in name we may be looking at for the CVTA regional projects, calling it like obligation. I think earlier I said obligation phase, but really just obligation of the CVTA regional project funds. I know, I think Chet, you're prepared to, I think Chesterfield may have been the only locality that was able to submit an update on their, I guess, obligation plan for their CVTA regional projects. I don't know if since then, has anyone else submitted anything?
Yes, so in the agenda that was sent out, starting on page 6 of 18, and I can share my screen and put it on there. This is, again, this is an information discussion, but this is kind of the general outline of how the schedule would display. This first page is showing all the jurisdictions as well as VDOT. But then each subsequent page would have a summary for each jurisdiction. This is Ashland. Here they show the Vaughn Road overpass. It's on hold because of the leveraging of funds. That's why it's grayed out. But you would see for Vaughn Road overpass in that left column, Ashland would go through and update this to include when those funds would be obligated to move that project forward once all the commitments are made. An example, Charles City doesn't have anything yet. So Chesterfield shows 2 different categories. You've got the on hold in gray for smart scale leveraging for 360 Woodlake to Otterdale and I-95 Route 10. But then you've got 288 northbound flyover to Bailey Bridge, Chippenham Parkway, Route 60, and Woolridge 288 to Old 100, where it does show when the expectations are for those funds to be used. And this is kind of what we would envision for every jurisdiction to include and to show kind of what the intent is for those 30 regional projects that were approved by the authority back in April, May. Again, you scroll it through here. This is Goochland's. All of their projects are on hold for leveraging. And then to reflect last month's action, the southbound auxiliary lane showing $0, but it's still there with a placeholder. And then you go through the list. So Hanover has 3 projects shown. Enrico has 5 projects shown. And then you would end up the last page. See if I can find that. here's the VDOT, all of the VDOT administered projects that would be showing up here across the page, from Capitol Trail crossings in Charles City all the way through to, the Stave Mill Road turn lane in Powhatan. So this captures not just the 30 projects, I guess, from the last round, but also the other projects that were committed during the initial regional fund commitment for Fall Line, as well as the other rural projects. Those are shown in this table as well.
Yeah.
So this is kind of the general layout. Obviously, we need to do some work on this and make sure that things are updated. But happy to take any discussion or suggestions on how to move forward.
Barb has her hand up.
It's easy to kind of get way in the weeds in this and try to overthink it a little bit. The way we approached it was we took a look at some of our existing projects and how the expenditures go, and kind of came up with general rules about, how the PE goes month to month. Survey is an expensive task in the PE phase, so that's kind of upfront. And then it kind of levels out. Another general rule of thumb that we found is a lot of, in the construction phase, $1 million a month kind of works. But we will be updating this. Is it every 6 months, Chet? Yeah. So, do your best guess to get it as close to what you think, but you'll have an opportunity to go back and review and see how on track you were and adjust. But it's important information for the CVTA to get so that they can invest money, and it's, they'll be able to invest it in different ways depending on how much needs to be available sooner rather than later. Hopefully that helps. And if anyone wants a little assistance, we can try to help.
Okay, I have Todd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chad, I just wanted to confirm you did receive our spend plan on the 26th.
I'll check right now.
I got a confirmation email back from you, but I'm hearing that you've only received it from one jurisdiction. So.
Yeah.
Oh no, I think we got the projects. We just don't have when they're going to be committed. So this information. But let me double check.
All right, we have it. So if you need me to resend it in a different format, let me know.
Chet, we have it. We've submitted it as well, and it's not showing up. But based upon this discussion, we might want to have another opportunity to change the numbers.
And so, Mark, I see Mark stand up.
Chet, following up with the email that we had sent to you earlier, given that we don't know when the funds will actually be available, do you want us to make an assumption that best case scenario, they would be available essentially immediately and build a spend plan accordingly? That's one question. Certainly, if we do that, that has an impact on how we validate any of the estimates. And as you know, we've not validated any of the estimates unless they were part of a previous application. So there's an exercise that we would need to do for the VDOT side of the house. It would include needing to validate the estimates. And then also, last comment, we probably need to look at all of the projects on the list on all of the different tabs of the spreadsheet there to make sure that the administration of the project is actually correctly listed that way. And so, for instance, Mayo Bridge is a project that is not listed under VDOT, but City of Richmond and VDOT have agreed that that's going to be a VDOT administered project. So we just need to make sure that there aren't any others that fall into that same kind of category. So two real questions, I guess. What do you want us to assume as far as funding, since we don't know when the funding's available? And would you like us to proceed with validating estimates?
So Mark, I would say for the first question, I think that we are assuming that the money is available now. Because and when I say that, because they want a cash flow for what money they would need, what money is available even to invest for a better return on investment, meaning for a longer period of time.
Sure.
So if you were to say, and yeah, so I would say now or as soon as VDOT could do it would be where what would be assumed for that. Does anybody disagree with that?
Yeah, I think that's on track. If for some reason we put together the spend plan and see that we've got it heavy on the front end and it's exceeding what's available, then I think we'll have to have a discussion. But I think we should put this together and just see how things shake out.
And we're happy to do that. We just, timing of the money it will generally have a pretty significant impact on what the project cost is. So if we were to delay it 2 years, that's going to change what our validation is. But we'll go with the assumption right now just to have the discussion and that it's available now, and we'll work with validation. Timing wise for us, we are hot and heavy in the middle of validating all the smart scale estimates. So I guess my respectful request would be to maybe give us as much time as you can to allow us to complete that, but we'll certainly do it as quickly as we can.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions, Mark, was I think today I bought us until December. Does that help you at all? Or you need like March?
No, we will work. If you want to give us till December, what I can commit to is giving you an update on how that's looking at the November meeting. Is that fair?
Yes. And being you would have started and you're going to tell us you're not finished, or you're in November, you're going to tell us whether you can start and have it done by December.
Oh, we'll start now, and I'll give you an update on how that's going in November. We'll target having it done by the December meeting, so that's 2 months from now. And if it looks like we're going to have some, and if it looks like there's any difficulty with that, we'll give you an update ahead of time at the November meeting.
Okay, I think that works.
Thank you. Appreciate the consideration that way.
Awesome.
Excuse me, Darona. And the issue about projects that might not be showing up or showing up in the wrong locality. If people see that happening, just chop them out and put them on your sheet.
Yeah, so Mark, so I guess with that, we would move those Mayo Bridge over to the VDOT tab.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Perfect. So yeah, thank you, Chet. And Mark, you still have your hand up, but I think that this document is very helpful in helping us to visualize. I think you took a lot of the next steps and populated stuff. And Chesterfield, awesome job on your support on this as well. It's very good and very helpful. All right, let us see. Does anyone else have any questions on this item?
Yeah, so what's the goal to get this information submitted?
Okay, so right now, so I guess if you can, for everyone, if we could have it by the November TAC meeting, submit it before, so Chet could repopulate the table. So let's take a look. That would be like the end. Let me get a calendar here. So our next TAC is the 14th of November. So he likes to send the agenda out. So are we looking at like the 4th of November? And knowing that, you know, everybody has tight timeline, if we come back and we still haven't gotten them updated by the 4th, and you will have the same deadline as VDOT, which would be December 2nd. And we won't subtract any late points. So I guess
ideally, November 4th, is that what you're looking for?
ideally November 4th, at the latest December 2nd. Oh, Joe, I have some other homework for you too coming up.
Bring it on.
Okay, so everybody, I guess everybody knows our deadlines for those. Moving to item 9, project selection and allocation framework. We're not going to have, luckily everybody will get time freed up today because we won't have a 45-minute discussion on this item. Chester's busy grant writing, and but we do have some update from the finance committee. We got lots of feedback today on some items. So I'm going to try to read my my scribbling. So the finance committee wants us to take in consideration if a project and really have some kind of policies and procedures in place to address if a project scores, you know, bad or low in SMART scale. Is there a way we can have a reevaluation of the dollars? So currently, I think that specifically speaks to the item in the policy that says a locality has 2 years to reapply. I think it's directly correlated to that. And they're saying that if the project scores so bad and without this huge additional leveraging potential, are we holding up dollars that could really be going to cost overruns or you know, some other need that the CVTA may have? One of my notes I wrote was maybe like producing a list that the authority has to approve. So when I say that, so the list would probably be smart scale projects that were unsuccessful, the dollar amount, and the locality, and potentially the CV, you know, the finance committee or the CVTA has to bless it and say, okay, these are going to move forward for we're going to hold it for the next 2 years. So essentially it takes out of the hand of the locality ability to just assume it's going to move or remain allocated or appropriated to them, if it doesn't fare well or get funded with smart scale. So I know that one, they want to have something that allows them to change that money sitting there. So anyone have any comments? I see Barb and Todd.
Yeah, I would say that's probably a good thing to do to, at the end of the smart scale, evaluate the success of the projects with leveraging.
Mhm.
We might be able to even get someone from OIP to weigh in on that. And we could see if there are ways to refine the project scope, or if we think leveraging amounts could be adjusted to make it better. Of course, we wouldn't want to just pile on a whole bunch of money, but having a conversation about that. The challenge will be, one, what is defined as scores poorly. That's subjective. And another challenge would be every year, the pool of projects that a project is competing against changes. You know, so we can talk about what happened this cycle, but it doesn't necessarily mean the next cycle it would be the same story. So I would suspect that there probably aren't going to be that many that we would necessarily recommend pulling the money from.
Mhm.
But I think it is very valuable to do a look at that. And we should probably include that as part of our task with the regional projects and add something to the framework.
Okay. Todd?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's good for the group to put eyes on it and, you know, maybe figure out ways to modify scope, or if maybe more leveraging may make a difference the next time. But I think it's important for the authority members to understand that if there's money that is allocated to leverage a smart scale application, you don't necessarily have to tie up that money. It's a placeholder for future funding. For the same reason on our spend plans, we aren't locking up that money that's leveraging. That's out your money. So if it doesn't get funded in one round of smart scale, then you're basically moving that placeholder out to the next smart scale cycle, whatever that year may be. So it's not like you're tying up millions of dollars of previously allocated money. So I think that's important to explain that to the authority members and maybe give them a little bit more comfort level and not be so antsy to, cancel projects that otherwise may do better next round of smart scale with some tweaking.
And then I just had kind of similar to that item was the evaluation kind of the cost overruns. I know it seemed like we talked about maybe just on our other parking lot items, kind of mirroring the CMAQ process. Did we fully talk about how we wanted to approach cost overruns, especially they talked about with inflation, how we would address that, and the pot of money. Chet?
Yeah, thank you. We kind of got into this Tuesday at the TPO TAC meeting. I mean, staff, particularly Miles and I, have heard it from TPO board members as well, that we just need to get a better understanding and figure out a way to be better prepared for cost overruns and how to approach those in the future. I mean, obviously today right now we're talking about CVTA funding, but there's STBG and CMAQ are going to experience the same kind of things. So we are aware of the requests and are trying to come up with sustainable ways to think about this in the future. Anybody who was on the TPO TAC call on Tuesday kind of saw where we were headed, and it's not always going to be an easy discussion, but I think it's probably a good thing to be doing right now to show that we're making progress, and we're trying to work on this and figure out how to do it. I'm not sure there's any quick answer, but I think acknowledging it is the first thing, and showing the elected officials that they're heard, and we're trying to come up with recommendations for them. So I think staff's recommendation is we would love to find a way to address this that isn't just CVTA focused. We'd love to find a more comprehensive approach that that could be used for STBG and CMAC pots of funds as well.
Okay.
I don't know. Did you call on me?
Oh, yeah, your hand is up. I didn't know. Is that an old hand?
No, that's a new hand.
Okay, awesome.
So in the framework document, there is a cost overrun section. And it is, I'm sure, mirrors what CMAC and RSTP, what is in that document. We can put this down as a parking lot item, so we can really pull it up on the screen, have everyone read it, and we can think about it and go through it in some detail. I'll make a note of that.
Yeah, and then Chet, whatever we maybe come up with, it could be, looked at compared with the other programs as well. And then just to go back to A, I had another note on here, like high rank versus low rank. And then when Barb said that it was, it could be subjective, did we want to consider talking about, making a statement about what we think high rank is and what low rank is? I mean, I think general, and maybe not just, I guess for the region. So a project that, I don't know, has a score of this or higher is considered a high rank, and this is lower is a low rank. I'm just saying they specifically gave us, I wrote some specific words. And so I'm just saying we may want to provide them with some of that guidance on what something that they may want to use. I don't know. But
It might be something that changes every round. Like when you consider the projects statewide, or if you just look at them in the district, you might be able to kind of come to some conclusion about, this project falls 108 out of 200 projects, to put it in some relative terms. And that might be how.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Mm-hmm.
Todd?
Yeah, to Barb's point, I think I don't think we want to arbitrarily assign a score to it, because it changes every round. So maybe it's a percentile of where it falls within the district or the state scores, as maybe a flag to look at it without any like, oh, if it's below this, it's out kind of thing. So where that magic number is, I don't know. I mean, the number of applications varies every time as well. So maybe if you do it on a percentage base, like the lowest 25% or whatever.
Yeah, and definitely even when I said the high versus low, it wasn't for us to exclude anything, but just to give them that relative understanding. So I think the input from the both of you, I think, still leads to that, and would probably be something we should discuss further as a parking lot item.
And Madam Chair, if I could add to that, I think it's also important for the members to understand that the scoring and the ranking of the CVTA regional projects is different than the scoring and ranking of Smart Scale. So if we're leveraging, they're on the CVTA regional side, they're going to see one rank of, the 30 projects last time. That's going to be different than what they're ranking on the Smart Scale side is. So which one are they focusing on?
Well, from my understanding, it seemed like they were talking about, well, yeah, I don't know. I was going to say Smart Scale, but then Peterson said something that made me think he's talking about
They
the
contradicted,
CVTA itself.
yeah, they contradicted themselves. So I think
I
need that clarity.
So I think that's true. So I think we can, they're probably going to say both if we ask. Yes, Chet.
Well, they're not gonna conflict with each other. I mean, the rankings, they may not be exactly identical, but if Smart Scale changes these projects, then the CVTA rankings will be similar. So I think we'll be able to use it as a guide and be able to like line them up next to each other.
Okay, cool, we will try. Okay, this one's for you, Joe. And it may be, we thought that I thought you were the person that was working on the map of the roadways that we always look at. And it may be that you always refer to it. But they talked about wanting, they talked specifically about roadways that weren't eligible. And so they assigned TAC to, bring a discussion to them about that conversation. So just kind of quickly brainstorming, what can we get them to help with that conversation? I thought about the maps, and then maybe in addition to the map of, say, the current structure, like what the guidance eligibility currently has for the roadways, and they were specific to the roadways, we think, for the roadways, and then also listing the roadways. I think it's one thing to see the map, but maybe having the roadway with the county name or the locality name would be helpful. But then also like giving that varying map that we kind of talk through that process. So one that maybe adds the COSS, the quarter statewide significance, or that preservation network. Maybe one, we talked about the, and this was early on, even one potentially that changes the ADT, or talking about the collectors. I think that those are two are at the, the other left end of the spectrum when we're talking about, where we don't want to go, but we don't know what they are talking about. And then we also touched a little bit on those special consideration categories, maybe having another category that took in consideration more qualitative things like the economic development, a roadway crossing multiple jurisdictions, or a commuter route. So we're just trying to talk through what would be good tools for them to visually, look at this topic as they've requested. I see Gary's hand.
Yeah, I had actually submitted an idea to Chet about 2 weeks ago, Chet, about the.
Oh, I think I saw that. Was that, but I think maybe.
It was a very rough framework too. I mean,
Mm-hmm. But was the basis of that having a scoring criteria for the rural different from the other projects?
Well, it was to separate the rural out from the other projects so that they would have their own scoring criteria similar to rural, but we wouldn't be automatically declared ineligible. Because I heard you mention the thing about when a road crosses multiple jurisdiction lines, but it may not be something that, the bigger four localities particularly want to see, or doesn't meet the eligibility requirements. But it basically, I'm trying to come up with a different way of doing it, so the rules small localities have a different score, slightly different scoring approach.
Yeah, and I know we talked about it briefly at our last meeting, and we can definitely talk about it again. But I know we discussed potentially not having two separate scoring criteria, but I'll let others chime in on that. I know Barb hand is up.
Like I said, I'm trying to come up with a whole different scoring criteria, but I wanted to separate the rules out so that we don't automatically just get kicked out because we're ineligible, to have a different eligibility level. Then you could score it the same way.
Okay, I understand. And I think okay. I mean, I completely hear you. We talked about this, whether that being a lower ADT or whether the type of road that makes you eligible. But again, I did think there was some hesitation in having two separate type of eligibility. But we are in the review and update stage, so we can make all considerations.
Yeah, we can talk about that again. We definitely did talk about it at the last meeting. And I think part of the feeling was if the code had been written wanting all the localities to get 75% of the money instead of 50% of the money, it would have been written that way. But it was written so that 35% of the money goes to regional projects, which to me means we have one process to consider eligibility for regional projects for the whole region. I think that what we were saying last meeting was that we would have a category, and you've explained this already, other considerations, right? So if you didn't meet the volume threshold, if you didn't meet the roadway classification, but there's other contributing factors like economic development, which would need to be defined in some way, or the crossing multiple jurisdictions, or it's a commuter route. Those sort of things might be what helps the rurals make a case for a road that doesn't meet some of those other categories that we already have for eligibility. So giving people a chance to kind of make a case for why that project should be considered. But I will make note of these comments and so that we've got them for our next discussion with the framework document.
Joe?
Yeah, so I think the mapping is a great tool. So and that's been developed, and it can be, different attributes can be shown. But what's great about the mapping is that it shows what the change is relative to the entire region. So, if something were changed that would help with eligibility in a particular locality, well, that's going to carry across those boundary lines, and we can see what the implications are, with the risk being that we get too expansive in terms of eligibility. I agree with everything that Barb said a few moments ago, and I'd almost like ask the question the other way. Instead of looking at it from eligibility criteria and then let's see what pops up, what are the regional projects in everybody's individual locality that are being excluded that otherwise you would think should be included? So what are those list of regional type projects, and then let's see if there's any adjustments that might be developed based upon that.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And that kind of leads into what I thought Chessa and Barb were going to do with requesting. So we'll probably do that again, request the localities to submit. I don't know, what did we do last time? The top 5 projects? Or or even not to limit you, just list the projects that you would consider regional. And maybe we submit those, and then have a conversation after that. I think that may be a good way to go. I guess Nora or Gary, do you think that that's something that we at least could start with, in trying to keep the aspect of regionalism and the dollars, but also taking into consideration that these little technical eligibility criteria may not be may not be giving all of the regional project that the rules may consider regional, all the projects that the rules may consider. So just asking Nora if and Gary, if that's something we could at least try to take that step and see where that gets us.
Yes, I think we could go in that direction.
Okay, perfect.
And we're appreciative of any consideration. And I hope that we can all agree that we're going to continue to evaluate it as we go, and that what we decide today or next month isn't hard and fast. You know, if we find that it's not working next year, I hope that everyone's open, that we continue to have these conversations until we get it figured out.
Yeah, perfect. I think, you know, sometimes like anything, you have to walk through it. And maybe we get, you know, 10 years from now and there we go, 2 different processes for rural and urban exists for the CVTA. But yeah, I think that this is, you know, as we're interpreting it, a very good next step in review of that. Barb?
Yeah, ideally, if we were able to knock out some of the bigger regional projects, wouldn't it be great if we could get to a point where what was showing up kind of at the bottom of the list, because we've done all the stuff at the top of the list, is our priorities, and we would need to adjust our framework document to capture those, you know? So yeah, it's got to be something that we continually review and update for sure.
So I'm assuming, will it be then at our next November meeting that we're gonna have a long meeting talking about the project selection?
We'll need to get a list of projects from everyone.
Oh, yeah, so let's talk
Yes.
about that. When do we think we can get? Go ahead,
Just
I'm
for
sorry.
ease,
Check.
since we already set November 4th for another deadline to submit stuff, why don't we use the same date?
Awesome.
We'll send out a reminder.
So again, the date is to have your obligations for your regional projects and then your list of projects that you consider regional that aren't currently eligible.
Right. And those projects don't have to be in your jurisdiction. We're trying to come up with good examples, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because Mr. Peterson named some today. I was like, I'm gonna truck on that roadway. All right, do we have any more comments? Let me see if I have everything. And so we did want to make sure, I wanted to make sure, because that's why I was slow on answering Mr. Canova Peterson on the chair on the every other year. So they do want potentially just some clear understanding of this every other year. I know I had bullets like we'll know the outcome of the smart scale process, can leverage future smart scale. But I think the question was, you get the smart scale results and then the following year is when the cycle is open. So that's correct, right? Okay. I was like a little unsure. I saw Chet saying yes, and I was like, okay, I need to get rid of my brain. I think that's all we got from the Finance Committee meeting. Chet, I don't know if I missed anything. I had a couple notes on here about project management and project estimates, but I can't remember what Mr. Carroll said about the project management.
I think we already covered that.
Oh yeah, we talked about that so we want to make sure that was covered in if a locality is sitting on money. I think that's what Carol was talking about. So what that goes under So it doesn't necessarily
Check this.
fit under cost overruns, but it's in that same conversation of sitting money.
Right.
So does anybody have any thoughts on how we might address project management that results in unspent dollars or lack of project management? No comments. We can talk about that when we go deeper in. Because again, it's the project estimates being higher, looking at inflation, a locality not implementing a project and the money just sitting there, and then cost overruns. So I'll just put all those under this category. So I guess it's almost like a de-obligation for the project management question. All right, any more items? I think I'm done. Gonna move to number 10 on the agenda, then TAC member comments. Anybody have any comments? Hearing none. Our next meeting will be November 14th. Again, we have the deadline for November 4th, 2 items. And thank you everyone for your input and participation today. And I guess, and so Joe, we may have to get together, or because they want to talk about the eligibility at the next finance committee meeting. So I don't know how we're going to do that. Barb?
I was thinking about the same thing. I feel like we really can't talk about eligibility until this group kind of agrees to how we might want to refine the framework document. I mean, we could talk about how we did it before, but I know that we do want to make some adjustments, and maybe it would be more appropriate to try to get that done in December or January, depending on how much time this group needs.
Okay.
Can we make a statement? I mean, or do we know enough to say where we think adjustments are needed? So not just adjustments for the sake of adjustments, but we've gone through the first round, and these are kind of the shortcomings that we have experienced, or this is what we're hearing from the region in terms of areas. We don't have the answers. We don't have recommendations for addressing those things, but that's what and I don't know that I'm capable of putting that together.
Yeah, I feel like
But-
we need those
Yeah,
tests. We need to hear from everybody about the projects that they consider regional, and having that test group and being able to apply the other considerations to that test group to see where it gets us, maybe.
Yeah, but I mean, it seems like, before we can solve the problem, quote, problem, we need to know what the problem is. And, I think if we talked amongst ourselves, different people would have different views of like, well, I should be able to submit this type of project, but I couldn't. Do we even have? Can we report that to the finance committee?
I think we'll be able to once we get the projects from
Okay.
Yeah.
the other
And
jurisdictions.
Joe, I did at the last meeting, I did a review update, and I went through item 1A through 4 as far as what we had on our parking lot list. So, Chessa and Barb made the list. So to us, those are the problems that we haven't solved any of them, but we've kind of gotten a list of what problems are. I can say that at the finance committee meeting, we can update them on our progress on those items. Like, for example, when we talked about the eligibility requirements, we talked about special considerations. Now that is potentially not on the table. And so we're talking about being able to submit projects that the localities think are regional. And that may suffice for them, as their update for the next meeting until we move forward. I mean, that's just where we are. So we can say that, this is, and we can try to get Chet to not have us on the agenda, but just keep us under the TAC report so that we don't have to be an item because it's not enough information. But, and just say that we don't have enough right now, but we can give an update. And then that way I can just say a sentence versus they want some expounded. And then I guess then in between that time, we just know that, and because then maybe, Joe, when we get the projects on the 4th, we can put those projects on the map and list what they are and kind of give them that for a more detailed report on that item for November. For the November's Finance Committee meeting, not our meeting, because we would just be turning them in a week prior to us, but they would get, you would have them, and I don't know how hard they are to map, but.
Well, Chet might be able to map them.
Yeah.
Here's
Yeah,
an
we did it
interesting
last time.
thought.
It's not a problem.
Here's an interesting thought. We were able to use CVTA regional funds for leveraging smart scale, but yet all smart scale eligible projects would not be eligible for CVTA regional funding. That seems to be a disconnect, that we can use CVTA regional funds towards a smart scale leverage, but yet we couldn't do an otherwise project that would be smart scale eligible. We couldn't use CVTA regional 100% to do that project. So an opportunity, what I'm suggesting is maybe an opportunity to expand the eligibility requirement by saying, if your smart scale eligible project, that would also be included. And what does that look like?
That could be a,
because we're having a discussion, and I know we're trying to end this, and I got to go. But to answer my own question, where are the shortcomings in terms of eligibility? I would just say Hanover had 4 application possibilities, and we could only complete 3. We didn't have a 4th eligibility. But I don't want to be a hypocrite, because I do agree with Barb's earlier statement that had the intent be that, all localities get 75%, they would have written it that way, and that's not how it was written. So maybe that's a good news story. I know that's a difficult thing to sell. That's a good news, Joe, that you only have 3 projects, because that means that you don't have big regional issues. So be happy. But
maybe
that's
VTrans.
hard to explain to management. Senior management doesn't necessarily see it that way, so I get it. But we're technical, we're TAC. We can only see zeros and ones, and X's and O's.
I jotted down in my notes, VTrans needs, or if you meet a VTrans needs, maybe we need to think about that. So I've got that down in the notes.
I'm done.
Awesome.
I got to check out here in a minute.
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting if we don't have any other comments.
I guess, Dorona, let's just talk between now and then, maybe next week.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Sounds good. I'll reach out.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.